Hello everyone. In this video we are going to learn the basics about the Python package Matplotlib, and this is going to be a bit long video because we are going to understand Matplotlib in detail, how to print graphs or pie charts and histograms and everything about Matplotlib, so that a newbie who has only heard the name of this package can start using it in their projects. So, firstly, Matplotlib is a package of Python. It's a very cool package, and it is mostly used when somebody wants to display graphs or any types of charts in their projects. So for that, firstly, I'll import Matplotlib. Now, as I am currently working on Jupyter Notebook, so I do not need to install Matplotlib or any packages of Python. But if you are using any editor, code editor like Visual Studio Code or PyCharm, then you need to install Matplotlib by typing pip install matplotlib, and within a few seconds it will get downloaded, and then you can just import it like this: matplotlib.pyplot as plt. Now, what is this pyplot? Pyplot is actually a collection of functions which together make this matplotlib package, and we are going to be using it for making a project. So over here, firstly, we'll just visualize a graph that this is a graph that I want to make, a very simple one first of all. So it has an x-axis and a y-axis. So what I'll do is, firstly, I'll give axes. I'll say x-axis equals 4 comma, I'll just give random coordinates, and to y-axis I'll give again some random coordinates, let's say 1 comma 3 comma 9 comma 6 comma 4. So these two lists are my coordinates that I want to print. So what do I want to print? 4 comma 1, 0 comma 3, 6 comma 9, so on. So for our matplotlib, we need to give a command that is plt.plot, which means it will plot a graph for us, and the coordinates we need to give the parameters to it, that is x-axis comma y-axis. So this particular line plots the graph for us, but again we need to see that graph, we need to display that graph. So for displaying, we just need to write plot.show, plt.show, and this particular line will display it for us. So I'll just quickly run this particular program, run it. Okay. X comma y, and I'll run it, and I see this is the graph that we get. It is quite weird because the points that we have used are just random numbers. So instead I'll use some simple numbers so that we get a graph which we can conclude to 1 2 3, and over here I'll say 3 2 1, and I'll run, and as you can see we get a descending line. So x coordinate 1 matches to 3, as we can see over here. Second coordinate matches to 2, and the third coordinate matches to 1 of the y-axis. Now let's say that I do not want this line and I just want points to make me identify what are the coordinates. Then what I'll do is I'll just simply add an O over here. What it will do for me is, okay, sorry, we need to print it in semicolons, and I'll run this graph, and as you can see we just have points over here, so the line disappears. So this is also a type of graph which you might want. So it gives us 1 comma 3, 2 comma 2, and 3 comma 1. It is actually very easy. This type of graph is very easy to identify the coordinates. And let's say what happens if I only display, or if I only give one axis as a coordinate. So I'll write y-axis as, or we'll just take this example. I'm just gonna copy y equals, no, okay, let's say I'll write a new one, that is 9 comma 0 comma 2, This is my y-axis. Now what I'm going to do is I'll just plot it. I'll just give one input, that is y, and I'll write plt.show. So what happens is we still get a graph. Uh, Everybody was expecting an error over here, but we still get a graph. Why? Because the compiler has taken x-axis as a default, which is 0, 1, 2, 3. If you do not give x as an input or y as an input, then it will take it by default by itself, that is 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on, as long as the y-axis goes. Moving forward, now we'll take a look at what are markers in Matplotlib. Now, as over here we can see this dot that represents a coordinate is actually a marker. Now we can just play around with this dot, and how I'll show you over here. What I'll do is I'll add a keyword marker equals, let's say, a ring. So for a ring, for getting this dot, we need to write O, which represents a ring, and I'll just run this, and we get a marker at the coordinates. As you can see over here, there are many different options. You can also put an asterisk over here, and I'll run it so I get an asterisk instead of that circle. I'll display a picture over here identifying which markers can be used, which different symbols can be used as a marker. Now we can even change the color if you want of this marker. For that, what I'm going to do is I'll just say, or what I can just directly over here I can write that I want an O marker, that is the ring, and colon represents a dotted line, and the color should be red. This is just extra space over here. I'll run this and I get a dotted line. Now we'll just break it down. What does this mean? This O stands for the type of marker that we want, which is the ring, which is this bullet kind of a dot. Then this colon represents which type of line do we want. Now colon represents a dot dot line, and R, which represents the color of the line. I can write B over here and I'll give it a run. I get a blue line. If I put a dash over here, I'll get a straight line, a solid line. So I'll also put pictures for all the colors available and all different types of lines that are available to us. Let's say that you are someone who doesn't like markers, you just want that line and not this extra emphasized dot. And then what you can do is, instead of writing this, we can just write over here line style equals, I'll say, dotted. And now if I'll run this, I get a dotted line without the markers. You can also write dashed over here, which gives us a dashed line. And there is also a shortcut for this. What you can do is, instead of line style, you can just write ls and use the symbols that we were previously using, that is colon or dash and other symbols. Now according to me, this graph looks very bland. So if there's somebody who is who is a third viewer, he'll never understand that for what unit is this y-axis meant for, what is this x-axis meant for, and what actually is this graph meant for. So for that, to make the work easier for the one who's looking at this graph, what we can do is we can add labels. So for that, I'll add plt.xLabel, and let's say this is time, and our y label is, let's say, distance. And also we can also give title to a graph. For that, I'll write plt.title sample graph. I'm very bad at giving names, so forgive me for that. And I'll now run. So as we can see, we now have our labels over here. First of all, which is the title sample graph, then the y-axis has distance, and the x-axis has time over here. We can also just write seconds, and meters over here for better understanding. So here we get time and distance in meters. And again, you can even add colors over here. Let's say I want this distance to be displayed in red and time in blue, then I can just write comma color equals red and color equals blue. And if I'll run this now, I get these different colors. Similar way you can also add it to the title. And many more changes can be made. You can even change the font by writing font equals whatever the font is. You can change the font size by giving a size to it. So many more styling and specifications can be made to this graph. Moving forward, we can also have grids into our graphs. So if we want squares, those horizontal and vertical lines behind our graphs, then it is very simple. I'll just write plt.grid over here. And now if I run, we have a grid behind a graph. It can be any way you want. If you only want lines to be present with the y-axis, then I'll say axis equals y. Now if I run it, then we only get lines with respect to the y-axis. Similarly, it can be done to the x-axis. And as this is a line, you can also give styling to it, that is ls equals colon, that is dotted line. And if I'll run it, then we can see now we get a dotted line over here. You can also give color to it, and many more things can be done. We can also give an x-axis over here, and I'll let's say have a dashed line. And now if I'll see, I have a dashed line over here. So these all are small concepts: putting a grid, putting a label, and putting a title. These are small, but they really make a graph look good. If you compare this graph with this graph, so this is very bland, a very plain graph which nobody would understand. But as I see this graph, let's say I have got nothing to do with what data has been inputted, but I can just have an idea that okay, this represents the time and this is the distance, and just makes a graph look a bit more sophisticated and easy to understand. As we have now learned how to style a graph and make a graph in Matplotlib, let's say that a shopkeeper near me, somebody who owns a shop, has given me a project to display graphs about what are the sales of this particular shop and what is the total income getting generated. Now I want these two graphs to be side by side, not like one graph over here, then on the second line. Then so for that, what I can do is I can use the subplot function. What is it? We'll just take a look at it. I'll display over here x-axis with some coordinates, y-axis with some coordinates. So this is for the first graph that I want to plot. I'll just give an image over here that which type of graph are we trying to plot so that everybody gets a general idea. This is my first graph, data for my first graph. Now I'll over here write plt dot subplot 2 comma 2 comma 1 comma 1. Now what does this represent? 2 comma 1 comma 1. I'll write over here that it represents that this particular graph has two rows, one column, and the third parameter represents that this is the first graph. And I'll then write plt dot plot. Now similarly we'll write data for the second graph. I'll just quickly write it. Now over here I wrote 2 comma 1 comma 2 because this is my second graph, and then plt dot plot, and at the last I'll write plt dot show to display these graphs. And now I'll run this code. So as you can see, I get two graphs over here. First one is this first one, and then we have the second one. Now as you can see, there is something missing, that is the main line of a graph that shows the data. Now if you can spot where is that small error that I've made, over here in plot I have not given any parameters. So I'll just write x comma y, similarly x comma y over here. And now if I'll run it, I see two graphs over here, as you can see. Now we'll just quickly give names to it, titles to it, so that it gets easier to read these graphs. Over here I'll write title. As this is a sales graph, so I'll write sales. Similarly over here, income. And I'll run it. I see sales and income graph. And over here, as income is getting mixed with this 3 over here, so what I'll do is, instead of printing it as 2 comma 1, I'll write 1 comma 2 and 1 comma 2. So now we have one row and two columns. So what is the main difference? The graph gets displayed like this, that there is one row and two columns. So it is just a different way of showing. Now it's a very cleaner way to show the graph. And also I'll add a title over here for this whole graph. So for that you cannot write plt.title again. We need to write plt.subtitle. Let's say this is a general store graph, and give it a run. So I see general store graph. This is my sales graph and this is my income graph. Similar ways you can also label the x and y axes over here by labeling it in different graphs. I'll also add a line over here just so that it gets easier to differentiate where the first graph ends and where the second graph starts. So now we have come very ahead into learning. Firstly, we learned how to plot markers, then how to have these grids. Now we have also learned what are subplots. And now moving forward, we'll now see how to plot bar graphs, which is very different than these line graphs, but again as easy as these looks. So for that, what I'll do is I'll take, let's say I just want to display marks for 3 students. So my students are, again as I'm very bad at giving names, we'll keep A comma B comma C as our students, and I'll say marks equals 35 comma 60 comma 90, and everything is same, but there is only one thing that changes. Instead of writing plt.plot, I'll write plt.bar, and inside I'll say marks. No, I want students to be on the x-axis, so I'll say students comma marks, and then just write plt.show. So this displays a bar graph for us, and you can also change the color over here. As we did previously, you can write color equals red, and it gives us a red graph. And many more changes can be done. You can add labels similar to the line graph into it. Now moving forward, we'll see how can we display pie charts. We learned line graphs, bar charts. Now we'll also see how to display pie charts. So again, pie charts are also very easy. Let's say I have this array that I want to display, which is 25 comma 60 comma 34, comma 21, and I'll just write plt dot pie y, okay, y, and plt dot show, and I'll just run this and I get a pie chart. Now how is this printing data? For that we need to understand that this is the start point, and from this start point this graph goes counterclockwise, that is this side, which is towards my, let's say this is the 0 degree angle, then 90, then 180, then 270. I'll just again add an image over here so that it gets easier to understand. That is how this graph goes and prints values for us. Now for adding titles over here, as this is very confusing to understand that what does this 60 show, so what I'm gonna do is I'll make a list called titles and just give title A, okay, I'll give a capital one, A comma B comma C comma and D, and then just write labels equals titles and run this. So I get my labels over here, A, B, C, D. You can also make a particular part view differently, or can also emphasize on a particular part, which is called as explode in pie charts. And how can we do is I'll add one more list over here, that is exploding. You can name anything, but I'm not getting names right now, so I'm just giving random names, and then I'll add some values, that is 0.4, and the other two I don't want them to explode, so I'll just keep it this way. And over here in plt.py I'll say explode equals exploding. So what will happen is when I'll run this, I see that A and B have been separated or broken from our pie chart, but C and D are together because we have given 0,0 value over here. You can also take them away by just writing 0.3 and run. So I see my pie chart has completely exploded and broken into different parts. Again, more styling can also be done over here. We'll quickly take a look. We can add a shadow effect to our different parts, and again we can change colors of these different sections. It is quite easy. So for adding a shadow, what I'll do is I'll just add one line over here, or one sentence, that is shadow equals true, and run this. Okay, I need to write true, and I'll just give this a run. So as you can see, a bit of shadow has been added to all of our parts. I don't know if it's quite visible or not. I'll just once remove it so that we can easily see the difference. I'll run, and now there is no shadow. And for changing the colors, again it's very easy. I'll just write colors. Firstly, I'll take out this explode and write colors. You can add any colors you want. Um Yellow, green, black, and let's say pink. And I'll just say color equals colors, and I'll just run this. I got an unexpected. Okay, I think it is colors equals colors. So yeah, we get a pie chart. The color combination is too bad, but yeah, we're just learning the concept, not into designing and all. And the last thing is that if we want to just have a box over here which is called the legend, displaying what is A, what is B, what is C, what is D, then we can just write plt dot legend on the next line and run it. So I'll get a legend over here that is A, B, C, D. And again, also you can also give a title to it, that is pie charts, and run. So I get a legend with a title pie charts and A, B, C, D. These names are taken from our titles over here. So give meaningful titles so that somebody who's seeing the pie chart can easily understand what these colors differently mean. So this was learning pie charts. Now we'll quickly take a look at the last topic, that is histograms in Matplotlib. Let's jump on to the last topic of Matplotlib is histograms, drawing histograms. Now, how can we draw a histogram? Basically, what is an histogram? When there is a large amount of data and you want to predict some patterns through it, then normally histograms are used to draw them. So, for example, let us say that I want to measure that how many people belong to this certain height range, let's say from 170 to 183 centimeters. So what I'll do is, for this particular example, I am going to also import NumPy, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 250 records. So for that, what I'll do is np dot random dot normal, the base height is going to be 170 and I want 250 records of it. So basically what X would be have stored in it is visible over here. So this is the data that X has in it. Now what I'll do is I'll just plot a histogram, and for plotting in histogram you just need to write plt.hist and I'll just pass an X into it and then plt.show, and I'll run this particular code. So I get an histogram over here which shows us that there are approximately, we'll count this to be an 8, that approximately 8 people have an height of around 140. This looks like a 140, from 140 to 150. Then 12 people have an height of 150 to around 157 centimeters, and so on. So histogram shows us this data. Now again, for you can put a color over here, like color equals red, or this time we'll take green. We have been taking red throughout this video, and I'll run. So I get an histogram in green, and like we did in the line graphs and every other graphs, we can also add labels over here like we previously did. An X label named height and a Y label named frequency. You can also say people, but we'll keep it frequency, and I'll run this. So we get a frequency on the y-axis and height on the x-axis. So this was a video from my side about learning the basics of Matplotlib, and there would be many more videos coming on more different packages, as Python is filled with so many packages and many of them are very cool and you won't even be aware of all these packages. So I'll put more videos, and if you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.